Okay, I'm recording.
Okay. Recording or streaming?
Well, at the moment, just recording. I'm just doing some more of my owl that I started a while back.
Okay. Which owl?
You know what? I think it's a barn owl. I'm not really sure.
That's a barn owl.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just loved the way the picture looked, so.
Mm-hmm.
And the colors.
Makes sense. It's pretty.
Yeah.
So, we were going to talk last night a little bit about our expenditures coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to bed way earlier than I intended to.
Yeah, but it gave me time to work on editing quite a few videos.
Oh, no, I'm sure it was worth it. I mean, it was sort of worth it. Holy crap. Your kitchen compost bin went up in price
Go figure.
from $27.49 to $34.38. The Apple spiral peeler went from $19.99 to $25.99,
What the hell?
and many others. Most of them not a significant increase, but the kitchen compost bin thing, that seems an odd increase.
That kind of irritates me a little bit.
Yeah. I'm sure. So this is my retail experience with Black Friday. We're gonna
Bump it up
do
before they do the
small
discounts.
incremental increases in a product, so that when we hit Black Friday, we can show you how much we've discounted it without discounting it.
Yeah.
Worked at Target and saw that so often. It's like, why did this go up in price? They're like, because it's October. They're getting ready for Black Friday. They want to discount it, but they want to discount it more. So they just kind of inch the price up early. Yeah. People don't believe retailers do that. Just track some prices every now and then.
Yeah.
They don't do it on everything. Some of the big ticket items, well, like your game consoles and things like that, the prices are a little more rigidly restricted. And a lot of times their deals are just bundles instead of actually discounting the unit itself. They find ways to manipulate things. It's kind of ridiculous.
And yet not that surprising, really.
No, definitely not a surprise. It's commerce. It's one of the things.
Just like Walmart gets away with, well, and I'm sure others do, but I've heard about Walmart doing it. Gets away with having their prices ring up as higher than what they're advertised or show they are on the shelves all the time, because people don't look, people don't pay attention.
Yeah, and that lack of attention leads to people paying more than they have to, because if they catch it and they go, hey,
we'll
that's
fix
not
it.
right, they're like, oh, it's a mistake.
We're so
and they
sorry.
Fix it, and they're not out anything because that's the stated price. But then,
Yeah.
you know.
But with all the other people, the ones that don't know, they get screwed.
But that's something actually Mike was talking about in one of his videos, is the concept of economy, and what an economy really is, and that the economy has the idea of economy is all wrong. That we look at it as you have to have this thing called an economy in order for people to survive or even thrive, and that this economy, that if the economy fails, people are just going to up and die. Nobody can survive. The economy's done. Everything falls apart. We all end up just dying because we can't manage. And he's like, but that doesn't make any sense. And he's like, economy is why I'm not allowed to build my houses, his earthships. Because if he's building a house that does not require a power grid, that does not require a sewer system, that does not require a water treatment and distribution system centralized, that does not require a constant lifeline to the grocery store. And the majority of people pick up on and start living in that. Well, now the cornerstones of several cornerstones of the economy are right off the market.
Yeah.
No longer need water treatment. We no longer need sewage treatment. We no longer need all of these wires going through the air that are horribly inefficient and leaking electricity as they go.
Mm-hmm.
We have a much lower reliance on grocery stores to provide us our fruits and vegetables at the very least. And for some people, like ourselves, it's even more impactful in that we're just going to go as far away from relying on anyone else as we can.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about salt and baking soda we'll probably have to buy. Cocoa powder, for what we need that for, we'll probably have to buy. But most everything else we have found or know of where to find the resources to either make or get it so locally that it's no longer impacting the national economy or the international economy. And that's the direction that, I would like the international and national economies in our lives to be based upon things that we cannot achieve locally. Mm-hmm. So there are certain electronic items that I look at as international economic items that have to be purchased.
Well, there's going to be some people that don't want to work towards or to make their own food, and I don't see that as being necessarily a problem. The economy could shift to where those people that don't want to work on that stuff can continue to work on, the technology side of things or science or other things like that, and purchase food from smaller farms like what we were talking about. There still would be an economy.
Well, and
it just would shift.
The reality of it is economy isn't going to change. And Mike kind of makes this point at least at one time or another, that the economy isn't going to change. The economy is still going to be there. People are going to move goods and services, or need and provide goods and services. What the problem is that the economy doesn't want to shift, because the economy is in essence a very comfortable creature. It's been doing things this way and making money this way for hundreds of years. Why should it have to get up early to go catch the worm? It's already done its work. Well, no, in the end, the economy has not done any work. It's basically a system. And it should, like most systems, be flexible and make adjustments as time goes on, rather than being stuck in a past where adjustments aren't possible because there's just too much holding it back, too much tradition. Oh no, what are the people that work for the power companies going to do if they no longer are needed to provide power? I mean, this is the argument that's made over and over again for fossil fuel. What are the people that work in fossil fuels going to do if they can't work in fossil fuels anymore?
It really sounds like it's just, what are the people that make the money off of it going to do?
Right, we're not going to evolve, we're not going to improve our world, our existence, because somebody who had a relevant job in the past isn't going to have a job anymore.
How the hell do we get to the point of doing fossil fuels in the first place if we didn't evolve to get there?
Yes. So the sailors who were sailing the world on their wooden ships with their tall masts and all of their skills, who then saw these steamships chugging across the waters and not needing to gauge the wind and rely on the natural cycles of the sea. Mm-hmm. Where was the person arguing for the steamships to go away because the sailors needed a job? There may have been some. I'm not really aware of any, but the truth of the matter is they were washed away because of progress. We're progressing past fossil fuels, and the fossil fuel industry needs to shut up and move on. Let me be clear, I worked in an industry that worked itself out of a job. I was in photo finishing. I handled 35 millimeter to 120 millimeter film from photographic cameras, and I did it through a 1 hour photo system as well as a order
I remember
system.
the 1 hour photo places.
And I took in film, I ran it through my machine, which gave me the negatives. Then I took the negatives and I made prints from them, and if there were errors in the prints, or if they were darker or lighter, then maybe the would be a good look for the customer, I would adjust that. There was some art to what I did because I had to understand how light worked and how the machine interpreted light. And I even got to the point where I was doing digital CDs of print pictures and stuff for people, digital copies of old photos, and helping them restore those a little bit and putting them onto through a new system at the time. All of this while working for Kodak for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
And another company, Idaho Camera. Idaho Camera recently saw they were going out of business. They were closing their doors. Kodak has, for the most part, stepped completely back from the photo world and on the consumer scale.
They go to printers or something instead?
And they've done some with printers. They've partnered with Hewlett Packard at one time on photographic level printers. And they have several other things. Eastman Kodak hasn't gone away completely, but they've fully reorganized and redone their business model in order to adapt to an age in which anybody can take a picture and print a relatively good, if not excellent, print from that digital picture at home. Most color printers can do what I used to do on their own. And the software for processing and adjusting color prints or pictures from phones to digital SLRs is cheaper, if not free, and available to the general public, and no longer requires someone with my expertise to make adjustments to those photos on a very nuanced level, because anybody can do it. The programs know or have the programming to understand what the person's looking for as they adjust the slider bars to make it work. There's less room for an accidental fuck up. In reality, the photographic industry, by its very nature, fell apart because...
Well, even photographers, because anybody can take pictures now. So photographers have had to either, like, flood the market with every picture they can come up with, or have really had to up their game and be able to show that they have actual skills in what they're doing.
And that's a good point. Now, I will say that portrait photography is still a fairly skilled and nuanced form of photography. There are ways to pose the body, ways to frame someone, things that you can do as a photographer to give somebody their best look that they and their friends may not be able to come up with. Although with YouTube videos explaining all of this, if somebody wants to put the time in, they can become that level.
That's true.
But not a lot of people want to put in the time still, because it is time and practice, whereas paying a photographer can alleviate that. But outside of portrait photography, the only other form of photography that's seriously entrenched in a professional level is the media photographer, the news photographer. And that's because they go places and take pictures of things that the majority of people would rather stay far away from. Not everybody is willing to go climb a fence and take a topless picture of Kim Kardashian and risk her bodyguard finding you and pummeling you as they throw you into the street. There are photographers willing to do that so that you can see that salacious picture in People magazine. They get good money for that risk.
But it's definitely a risk.
But that's a risk that I'm not willing to take.
No.
Also, the guy that sneaks up with his tens of $1,000 lens on the Serengeti to get a picture of a lion eating a fresh kill is also taking a risk most of the rest of us don't want to take, but boy do we enjoy that picture. Even if we're telling everybody how gross it is.
Some people do.
That animal is being eaten by another animal, there's still a level of interest in that gets those photographers paid. And then there's your photographers that go to war-torn areas, or go to areas of natural disaster, or go to areas of political disaster to take pictures and convey to us those moments in ways that we cannot go and get that for ourselves. Sports photographers who are willing to take thousands of photos on the sidelines of sporting events.
Oh my goodness,
so
I
that
know.
we can get 2 or 3 that really capture the moment of that big catch or that basket or that slap shot or whatever.
And you really do have to do that, because I did that when I was in high school. I took photography and I was doing the sports photos, and holy crap, you have to take thousands in order to get some really good ones.
And that therein is cold truth. You cannot just, pick up a camera and catch an act in a sporting event on film and have it be perfect. You've got to take the time to fire off hundreds of shots. And you've got to be able to track the action, because the amount of time it takes for a quarterback to start the play, hike the ball, drop back, find his receiver, make the throw, receiver catches it, runs, or gets tackled.
And you never know where to look.
To track that, because you don't know where the quarterback's going with the ball. If you, as the photographer, can tell where the quarterback's going with the ball, then the defense probably can tell where the quarterback's going with the ball, and then you need either a hell of a receiver or you're going to have a very broken play that isn't worth taking a picture of anyway. Unless you're taking a picture for the defense, which is even harder to predict. The point I'm making is, most sports photographers are rapid firing pictures throughout the play. They're just trying to make sure they catch the ball or the people in the positions they're in. Then afterwards, they filter through those hundreds to thousands of photos and find the keepers, the ones that capture the moment the best. And again, their equipment is really expensive because they need the highest resolution so that they can capture that at the highest speeds for the camera. Very expensive equipment still. You can't just do it with your phone. Although some people get lucky and some phone pictures are pretty damn good, you're not going to be able to consistently do it the way the sports photographer is. So they get paid. News photographers get paid. Portrait photographers get paid, because those are all skilled endeavors.
Animal portraits
Get paid. Animal wildlife shots get paid. Some of that is because we're not willing to traipse through the snow into some backcountry territory where there might be a wolverine wandering around that we can get some good pictures of. Because the wolverine ain't hanging around where people are. Any of those that do tend to get shot, because people and wolverines don't.
The ones that are actually
well.
pretty fascinating to me are the ones that do the micro photography.
And there's another one where you have to, and this is art photography also borders on this. It's where you have to have the right eye. You have to see the subject and the subject matter and know how the camera's going to pick it up and manipulate and get in there and make that work.
I think my brother could do it. My brother always had a good eye for micro things, because he could see, when we were kids, he used to be able to see the tiny little horny toads. The baby ones. He could see the teeny tiny ones. I mean, they're like an inch long or less. He could see them while he's full on riding his bike down the alleyway at full speed. I don't know how he would hit the brakes, skid to a stop, spin around, and go and pick it up, scoop it up, catch it. I was like, how in the heck did you see that when you're moving that fast?
Yeah.
He just had an eye for it.
And that's a lot of times the core of what it takes to be able to do some of the nuanced photography and stuff. But the nuanced photography wasn't Kodak, Fujifilm, Ricoh. That wasn't their bread and butter. Their bread and butter was the 35mm snapshot. And that is what largely faded away. The snapshot went away because...
Was that the one that printed out the...
No, snapshot is just a picture taken in a moment of something that's happening around you.
I didn't know if you were talking about a
special No. The Polaroid has actually had a resurgence of late, which is another topic that's interesting. But to get back to the point of an industry working itself out of a job, as photography has become more accessible, and Kodak started that, mind you, back in the day, in I believe it was post World War II.
They didn't realize they were doing that.
Don't catch me on the dates. Kodak started producing cameras that people could buy inexpensively and they would take it out and they would shoot the pictures, and then they'd send the whole camera back
The
to Kodak.
disposable cameras.
They weren't disposable so much as the Kodak. They would send them in. Kodak would open the camera, process the film, send them back the negatives, the pictures, and a reloaded camera, and they would keep, so they could keep taking pictures. And this was an early part of, this is how Kodak became a public, a family, or what is the term? Forgive me, my brain sometimes loses words. It became a household name through doing this, because it became accessible to the family to do exactly what they called it, taking snapshots. Because they would say, don't you wish you had a photographer around 24 hours a day? Well, now you can. You're the photographer. Just point the camera and push the button, and it does the rest for you. Send it in to us, and we will send you back perfect prints every time. That's the kind of ad that they would run in magazines, and you would hear it on the radio, and you would be encouraged to go and pick up your camera. So Kodak started this process of everybody.
This was before the disposable.
Oh, this was before cameras were a household thing, and then photography started to take off in the public, and people started having cameras all the time. And family functions, somebody would always have a camera. And they would be taking pictures, and those pictures would be, they would make duplicates of it. They would go in and it'd be like, I need double prints of this roll, or I need quadruple prints of this roll so I can send it to my siblings.
Right.
That started the photo finishing industry, where every mom and pop shop on the corner had their own photo finishing lab, or at least counter, where you could turn in your film or camera as time went on, and they would process that for you. And then in the late 80s, the camera, sending the whole camera in, came rushing back with the disposable camera, where you could go and buy a little plastic camera filled with film. You would take all the pictures, put the whole camera in the bag, send it in, you get the pictures and negatives back. And the camera didn't cost that much more than a roll of film by itself. So that way, if you forgot your camera, which is how disposables really started being marketed, you could go into any tourist shop and you could find a camera that you could pick up for that part of your vacation, because you left your camera at home, you dropped it in the ocean,
right,
broke it on or it didn't survive the flight in your suitcase. Whatever the case, you could go get a camera cheap that could document your vacation, the occasion that you're going for, or whatever. Again, Kodak and the film companies were pushing this hard. This was their bread and butter, was the consumer photographer. And then digital cameras started to come out, and this was when I was very entrenched in photo finishing. The digital cameras came out, and we're like, yeah, they're good. They look like fun. You could do some interesting things with them, but the quality when you print that out isn't going to look as good as it does on the screen. But that
remember
didn't
that
last.
too.
That continued to uptick as
because it had to, because demand
and the touring principle, where the power of computers doubles
right
in a short amount of time. That whole industry eventually flipped on its head, and Fujifilm, Ricoh, Kodak, they all fell on their faces because they didn't adapt quick enough to deal with the switch to digital. And now everyone all around the world has access to a digital camera of some sort. I mean, I have seen pictures taken by kids in villages where they're standing in line to get a loaf of bread, but the kids have a digital camera on their phone, or on their family's phone. Somebody's got a phone, and they're taking pictures with it. And so we're getting pictures from places that we've never even heard of, because they're that accessible, they're that easy to come by, they're that pervasive. Again, that turned around and shut down that industry I was in. Film dried up quick. I left photo finishing to go back to college right around 2003. By the time I was a sophomore in college, it was a struggle to find any Target stores with 1 hour photos still in them. And those 1 hour photos continued to shrink and disappear until Fred Meyer and Walmart were the only two in the areas I was in that still had them. And recently, I have seen Fred Meyer's 1 hour photo. It looks like they're finally gone. And Walmart seems to be the only gig in town. And I believe not every Walmart has one. And they're not doing film anymore as much as they're doing just digital development. You take your digital photo in, you can plug your phone in, you feed
that you've
load
got
it
their,
to their
their
system, and they print it out.
self-serve system thing,
Yep.
and yeah.
There are still disposable film cameras, I believe, in some places, and Kodak still has their send-in service, which is you drop your film off in the traditional envelope, and it goes in a bag, and that goes to Kodak Central Photo Lab, and they process it and they send it back. But that has gotten so limited that I struggle to find any of those out there. To be sure, Walgreens may still have some 1 hour photos here and there. They were another one that was part of their company. They were a pharmacy, they were a convenience store, they were a 1 hour photo, and that was all part and parcel with that. I have not been in many Walgreens of late, so I can't speak to their.
No, goodness, that's been a couple of years since we've been into one of those.
But the overall point is, nobody stood there and cried for my job when digital cameras were coming around. They just looked at me and said, yeah, guess you better learn to do something else.
Yeah.
You know, you're working yourself out of a job there. I'd heard that more than once. Yep, I moved on. But when it comes to petroleum products, because there's so much more money there.
Yeah, well, and the same thing like with hemp and stuff and how that got, but a whole nother probably long conversation.
The demonization of hemp as an associate to marijuana with absolutely almost zero mind-altering ability, that was a tragedy.
Well, and some of them don't have any.
But the reality is, when you run up against an entrenched industry that doesn't want to change, that has people in power who are making huge amounts of money because that industry's there and doesn't want to change, then you lose your flexibility as a culture, and you get stuck like we are with fossil fuels, like we are with water systems that are inefficient and in many ways poisoning us and the planet. I mean, ask your doctor sometime, just how much chlorine does your body require as a vitamin or mineral? Because I bet your drinking water far exceeds that.
Oh, probably.
Or fluoride. You know, chlorine could be excused as a purification agent, though the amount that's in your drinking water is almost invariably more than necessary to purify the already treated water.
Mm-hmm.
But fluoride, almost every municipality in the United States has fluoride added to their water. But why? It's not for purification. Look into that. You'll find out more than I may know. When it first started happening, I heard it was because we had kids who didn't take care of their teeth, and we were going to help them by fluoridating the water so that their teeth would get better. Except, it's not really what the fluoridation in the water is doing. But look it up. It's out there. There's plenty of scientific studies. And when I say look things up, I'm not telling you to go find another YouTuber that's out there hollering at the wind, yelling about whatever it is I'm talking about. When I say look it up, go find an article in a scientific journal, or an article in a magazine that at least references these studies from scientific journals as source for their information. You want to look up what fluoride in the drinking water is doing. You want public reports filed through journals of science and or medicine that tell you the truth of what research is showing. Research is not something that somebody went out and talked to a couple people and decided this is what the reality is.
Well, but we were talking the other day about some big companies. I think we said it was the tobacco company or something has purchased some of those reports and altered them too. So how can you be sure you can trust the scientific reports you find?
Well, and that's the thing. What you can be certain of in most cases. So the tobacco industry, when they went through and found scientists who were about to file a report that would look down on them, they would buy the report and not publish it.
I thought they altered it.
There have been altered reports. I don't remember. I would have to verify that. That is something that would require some research that I haven't done.
Okay.
But as far as hiding reports, big companies do it all the time. There are a lot of patents that have come along for alternative fuels that were bought by fossil fuel companies
just to be buried and
and
never used. That I
locked
did
in a
know.
vault. It's the same kind of thing. Now, as far as scientific studies go, if it's in a reputed peer-reviewed means other scientists in the same field have gone through and looked at the numbers and questioned whether that study is accurate and done the math to see if it is. And if it isn't, then they publish rebuttals to that study that are also in those same journals, so you can see over time the studies that are the most accurate will survive that peer review process.